There we go. We're recording now. Hello, everybody. This is Fanny Anzai interviews. Once again, Maxime Bernier, leader of PPC, People's Party of Canada. Thank you so much, Maxime, for coming here and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be with you.
So, well, we are all pleased of the last news. I can't not start talking about the latest resignations, right? Which is we had such a long wait for with Trudeau must go, right? And such a soap opera, right? With all this uh, regime, should you say that? Kind of authoritarian, right? Police state, all sorts of dystopian realities to think of, as the leader would say, current times or current year, right? For 2024 or the late ones. Free land and Trudeau gone. Next step, elections coming. How are your nerves and what are the expectations?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm very happy and very pleased that we will have an election this year. I hope it can be this fall or this spring, sorry. If not, it will be this fall. Yes, you're right. There's a leadership contest now with the Liberal Party of Canada. The Liberal Party will have a new leader, Mark Carney or Freeland. But for me, that would be the same. After 9 years, people are fed up. They want a real change. And I don't think that the Liberal would be able to stay in power. For us, at the People's Party, we are doing very well. Up to now, we have about 200 candidates selected and approved for the next election. Our goal is to have a full slate of candidates all across the country because we want every Canadian to be able to vote for the People's Party, for their values, for another way to do politics, and it's going well. I must say that we are still doing a call for candidates. So if some of your viewers are interested to be part of the change and be a candidate for the People's Party of Canada, they can write to us at info@peoplespartyofcanada.ca. We have a very strong and nice process for approving our candidates. So don't hesitate, be part of the change, come with us. And if you want to know more, we'll have a discussion about the platform of the People's Party. But they can always find our platform, electoral platform, on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. Everything is there.
We're gonna leave the links here for everybody to be able, and they are really fast response when you contact them. So and it's very clear the website, all the policies. Uh, I think it is the option for the authoritarian left and right that we have all across the globe, right? There's not a problem here in Canada or United States, but definitely the Maxime Bernier PPC People's Party of Canada might be that the centrist more to the right. So you guys still hold the conservative values and might be just like Trump, not exactly a Republican, not exactly a libertarian, but the people that defend individual rights and freedoms are the people who come like I came as a legal immigrant for a place that I expect to find better than my country, raise my kids in a safer place, the strong and free North, which we would like to preserve, right? Canada this way. And I think you are the only one, right? You usually say the only populist candidate that will actually talk about the real problem, right? Which would be the mass immigration. So is that the reason? Uh, why they try to keep you out, right? What are the new shenanigans that they are doing to keep you out of the debates, the public debates?
Yeah, we had a very bad news last week because if you remember in the election in 2021, they said, there's two criteria, sorry, and you must meet only one of them to be able to participate in the national debates in 2021. And one of the criteria was to have 4% of the vote at the previous election. So for us in 2021, that was the election in 2019, and we had 1.6%. So the other criteria was to have an average of 4% in the polls 28 days before the election. And 28 days before the election, we were around at 4.5% in the polls. But they did an average and they took a very crazy poll and they gave us 1%. So that 1% went down the average at 3.2%. So they said, Bernier, you cannot participate in the debate in 2021. So now because of the rule that 4% in the previous elections. As you remember, in the election in 2021, we had 5%. And so we received a call from the debate commissions a couple of months ago, and they wanted to have an interview with me about the process and the agenda for the debate. And they said, we will have a discussion with every leader. And we asked them if it's still the 4%. And they said, yes, you had 5% in the next election, so you'll be in the debate. But what was the surprise last week when they came with new criteria again, and now the 4% at the previous election is not there anymore. That's not a criteria. And what we must do is to have an average of 4% in the polls 28 days before the election. So what is telling me, they don't want us in the debate because they changed the criteria again, and they would be able to play with the polls 28 days before the election with that average. So I'm asking everybody, it's important for us to be there. We had about 840,000 people who voted for the People's Party of Canada. They need a voice. That's the PPC voice. That's our voice. By eliminating us from the debate, by canceling us, it's a question of censorship. They are what they're doing right now. They don't want our voice to be out there, and for me, it's undemocratic because we have great solutions, great ideas for the future of this country, and we need to be there. We were there. I was at the national debates in 2019. But now they're doing everything for us to be out of the debate. So what I'm asking your viewers, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. We have a petition over there. Please sign the petition, and we will write a letter to the leaders debates commission, and telling them that we have all this support from all these Canadians. You need to change. You need to allow us and allow me to be able to participate in the national debates. So, it's a big. It's the leftists and the conservatives. I'm pretty sure that they did a lot of pressure. They didn't want us because I'll be the only one who will question Polyev on his policies. And anyway, but for me, for the next election, we will be ready. And I hope that we will be able to participate in the national debates.
That's right. Let's see if they're not going to keep moving the goalpost and, like you said, manipulating the data to keep you guys out, which is an interesting fear, right? It's really like the status quo. It might be a little bit that you guys really represent that anti-establishment, which was what Trump represented and they feared, right? He managed to break through all that censorship, fake news, and uh, shadow banning, and now perhaps with him coming into power and Elon Musk also taking the lead of being more open, more transparent, and now with the him declaring that they are not going to have the government doing censorship up down through the social media, we might be able to also get a little bit more visibility, which is part of this method, right? It's a vicious cycle. They're trying to keep you shadow banned in all ways, right? You need to have visibility to speak, but they don't let it. And when you could be more charitable to pick some better polls, they will choose the ones that not in your advantage, right? So
The
what?
left, if I must say, the left believe in diversity. but they don't believe in diversity of thought. They don't want our opinions. They don't want us to be there. They don't want our ideas. They don't want to debate. They are afraid because we are speaking about the real common sense and the position that a lot of Canadians agree with that. So for diversity, it's good for diversity in other sector, but for diversity of thought, no. They want the establishment politicians and all the same. Poliev and Trudeau and Jack Mead, they're sharing the same policies on a lot of issues, starting by immigration, starting by climate change and all that. They are in favor of more immigration and doing everything to fight climate change. And I can go on and go on. So
True.
we are not
We're
afraid of
definitely
our
going to
policies.
cover all that. We have a little bit more time. So, in fact, I wanted to talk about that. And I usually post saying Jagmeet or Trudeau or Pierre, they are different flavors of the same. And we have this in political science. If you check other places, for example, in Brazil, you had a leftist right and a leftist left for the last decades. It was just the left dressing up as
Yeah.
would be the Republicans, right? Or in the case they don't even have the Republican Party in Brazil, but besides being a democratic republic, because I guess the term of the Republican to defend the minorities is not something that the collectivists really want, right? But it's very paradoxical that their entire politics. But do you think it's a natural phenomenon, or you think there is a more of a hand of Trudeau puppetry, right, muppeting the other politicians as Jagmeet and Pierre Poilievre? Uh, are they all together, shaking hands in the back, or is it a natural phenomenon that they all pledge for the same thing and avoid to talk about the main problem, which you talk, the mass immigration, the source of all our problems around here?
Yeah, as you know, I call them the Lib Cum Party. It's about the same. Pierre Poilievre is a light liberal. They're the same. Just right now, that is in the news. Poilievre, Trudeau, and all the premiers, they're ready to put tariff and doing a trade war with Trump and the U.S. And only Danielle Smith from Alberta, she said, no, we must sit at the table having a discussion and look what we can do. We must export our resources in the US, and also we must control our borders, stop mass immigration. But Poliev, Trudeau, and Jack Mead, they're ready to have a trade war that would be very, very difficult for our economy. We can go in a recession by doing that. We must not forget that the US represents 10 times our country. So we don't want to have a commercial trade war with them. But Poliev, Trudeau, and Jack Mead, they're on the same boat. I'm with Daniel Smith on that. And on climate change, Poliev said that he will axe the tax, but actually, and he wanted an election on the carbon tax. But now it's a little bit funny because Mark Carney and Freeland, the two candidates for the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada, they're saying the same. They're saying, yes, we will abolish the carbon tax, but we will put other regulations there to fight climate change. So now everybody agree to abolish the carbon tax, but all these political parties, including Poliev and the Conservatives, they agree also to stay in the Paris Accord and to impose more regulations or other taxes to fight climate change, to give subsidies to the green industry, money that we don't have. We are, again, the only national party that is saying, like Trump did Monday, withdraw from the Paris Accord. So they're globalists. We are not. I can go on immigration, like you just said. On immigration, we signed the Global Migration Pact from the UN, and we must withdraw from that. It's our position. But for Trudeau, Poliev, no, there's no problem on immigration. Actually, it's a huge problem for our standard of living. housing. It's very hard to buy a new home in big cities, and to have a roof, only an apartment or a condo in a big city. So that being said, Polyev, his solution is to build more houses, but he won't be able to do that. We will need to build about 700,000 new houses a year just to meet the demand. So the solution is there. It's easy. What you must do, you must stop mass immigration. You must play on the demand. If you have fewer people coming to our country, that will help the housing crisis. Prices will go down. So it's a question of supply and demand. But Polyev wants to interfere in provincial jurisdictions and having more programs and things like that. The solution is there. Just stop mass immigration. But mass immigration, as you may know, it's not only bad for the economy, it's bad also for our culture, for our society, because all these foreigners, they are not integrating into our society. Some of them are not speaking English and French. They don't have a job, because right now it's very difficult for Canadians to have a job, and it's difficult for them also. We are paying them to stay in big hotels in Niagara Falls, Montreal, and Toronto. We cannot afford that. So when they're coming here, they're not integrating into our society. They're living in ghettos. So it's very bad, and I don't recognize our country anymore. We need to stop that. Look what is happening in Europe, in France, in UK with mass immigration. It's time to stop that, and we will do a moratorium on immigration, and we will deport all illegals in Canada. There's about 25,000 of them to 500,000. We don't know how many of them. We need to put the government and the civil servant working to find them and deport them. So if we do that, you control our borders, moratorium on immigration, deport all illegals, reinvesting in our defense at least 2% of our GDP. So we will be able to have a nice trade deal with Trump and the US. So that's our position. And mass immigration is having a huge impact. Actually, what Trudeau did, he just favored big businesses for them to have cheap labors, and that was a way for big businesses to have cheap labor. So, what my message to these big corporations, mass immigration and cheap labor is not the solution. If you want workers, you just have to increase your offer, increase the salaries, and Canadians will go. And if you cannot do that, you can reinvest in more productivity with robotic and all that to be more productive. So the solution is not, cheap labor. And actually, the fact the federal government is telling us, for the last 8 years, we need more people. We have, a lack of employees, so a lack of manpower. We need more people, more people. That's that's not the solution. Every year we did increase the immigration. As you know, last year it was 1.2 million foreigners coming to our country. And for a country of 40 million people, we need to stop that. So I'm very clear. And contrary to Pierre Poilievre, the next election must not be on the carbon tax. The ballot question must be immigration. That election must be a referendum on immigration. And if it's important for Canadians to preserve our culture, to preserve our standard of living, because now we have more people coming here, the economy is growing, but it's like, the economic pie is growing, but our piece of the pie is smaller. The GDP per capita is going down. So that's why we are poor. And so we need to end that. And the next election must be on immigration. And if it's the case, we have the solution. So that's why I'm pretty optimistic. I believe that the next election will be a good one for the People's Party of Canada.
I hope so. So for the people that would try to talk about the split vote in between the PPC and the Conservative, right? Poilievre probably will be the one elected for the next election, right?
Yes.
Uh, do you think Trudeau was Biden out of the right? It was like I'm gonna run, and then one day they dropped the Twitter, right? It was more like like the Democratic Party told Biden through Twitter, "You're out," and he's
Yeah.
like, "Well, I better just go with the flow, right?" And
Yeah. No, you have a point about splitting the vote. Actually, splitting something, if you split an apple, you'll have two pieces of an apple. But for us and the conservative, you don't split anything. We are different than the conservative, like I said, on the most important issues for the future of this country. We are so different. But also, you just said it. If you look at the polls, and that is the history of our country. You have 9 years of liberals, 9 years of conservatives, 9 years of liberals, 9 years of conservatives. After 9 years, people will vote against the liberals. They want a change. So look at the polls. Polyev is at 40% in the polls. He will have a majority. He will be prime minister. So people who are saying, oh, I don't want to split the vote because I want to get rid of the liberals, so they will. Now they can vote for us. There's no splitting the vote. Polyev will win. They can vote in line with their values. They can vote their conscience. They can vote for the PPC. It will be win-win because we're going to push Polyev in the right direction. We're going to be your insurance policy that Polyev is a real conservative. And also, we will support Polyev when he will be a real conservative and will shame him when he won't. So that's a win-win. We will keep Polyev honest. So that's why I'm telling to people, you need the PPC voice. We need to grow to be more influential because we know that Polyev is doing politics by survey and polling and focus group. Polyev is a follower, is following the survey and the public opinion. But we know that the public opinion has been manipulated by the leftist media, by the woke, by the leftist politicians. So that's why we are not doing politics like that at the PPC. We are leading the public opinion. We have our ideas, we have our vision for this country, and we are speaking about that, popular or not, when we are speaking about that. For example, on immigration, in 2019 when I said that was not popular. But now, in 2025, there's more than 60% of the population who are saying enough is enough. So we that's the way to do politics, to lead. But Polyev is following. So knowing that, you need the influence and the voice of the PPC to to be out there and to change the public opinion, to influence and to keep Polyev in the right direction. So that's why I'm saying to people, who want the liberals out, now you can vote for the People's Party. You are free to vote your minds, and that would be a win for you, for the People's Party, and for the country.
for sure, it is optimistic, and it's true. Do you think it would be perhaps are you talking about a type of support or type of over checks and balance, right? The PPC to be there as well, even being a minority that would not split the vote, but a presence to make some change in the right the direction. As the leader of the PPC, you think the PPC could be in the position just as the Libertarian Party took in the United States when they supported Trump and they went on stage and they talked clearly about we want this, and they use their support to say like where we would split the vote, we will ask our people to vote for you, and using that leverage to get already some things on the agenda, right? The new president. So, is that a case you guys would be open to consider that, even if it perhaps Polyev might not need that, right? Like you said.
Yeah, Polyev does not need us to win, and I don't want to go back there. When I resigned from the Conservative Party of Canada in 2018, I said this party is intellectually and morally corrupt. They are not conservative. They're promoting, ideas that are not the real conservative ideas. I don't want to waste my time with them. And we created the People's Party. I must admit, that was the best political decision in my political life. So I'm very, very happy with that. And now this party is growing. But also that's a big challenge in Canada, like in UK, because of our electoral system, first past the post. It's more difficult to have a candidate elected. There's no proportionality in our electoral system. And I looked at what happened in the UK, what happens in UK with Nigel Farage. He created the Reform Party, and if you look at the platform of the Reform Party, it's about the same than our platform. So the Reform Party in UK is a populist party like us, like Trump in US, like Marine Le Pen in France, and so he was able to have 15% of the vote. And with that, he was able to have only 6 candidates elected. So, so because of that system, it's more difficult. But for us, we had 5% at the last election. And if we double that around 10%, that will help us. And we may have our first candidate at this election. But I must tell you, we are doing politics on the long term. If we don't have a candidate elected, we will still be there to fight and to promote our ideas and ready for the election in 4 years in 2029. So our time will come. That populist movement across the Western world is everywhere. And we have this political party here in Canada. So I hope that we'll have a voice in Parliament at the next election. But if not, we will be there to fight.
Probably gonna get 2 seats, right? Something like that to hold that presence, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know how many seats, because the challenge that we have, contrary to the Green Party of Canada, the Green Party, they have 2 seats, but their vote is concentrated on the island in Vancouver. So the island of Vancouver. So it's all their vote is concentrated there. For us, our vote are not concentrated in one riding. It's all across the country. And you know what? I like it like that, because we are a real national political party with all these votes, all across. We have people voted for us in every province. But the challenge is we don't have our vote is not concentrated. But and we will. I don't know what will happen. As you said, we had 5% at the last election. But for example, in the province of Alberta, our average was 10% in Alberta. Our national average was 5. So we have a little bit more support in Alberta than across the country. And our first candidate can come from Alberta. I don't know, but I can tell you I will work hard, travel across the country, meet our candidates, ready for the next election, and we'll see what will be the result.
Yeah, hopefully we break out a little bit of the establishment, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that is like you said, you want to keep the party clean, principled, and try to move away from this system that seems to be corrupt, if not by ignorance. Perhaps let's be charitable and say that they just don't know better than to think that they actually are riding on the crisis, right? Why would all those candidates, which are the mainstream media, would avoid talk about mass immigration and ride on it, which knowing that is the source, right? The origin of all the problems that we having experienced as normal people, right? And I think we feel more you are really the People's Party of Canada when we see a candidate flying in a normal commercial flight, right? Like everybody, like we have met before. And we live in such an expensive area here where there is a replacement happening because it's so expensive to live that the native people, I mean Canadians, are moving into the interior, right? And perhaps that's why over there they are already more based, more principled, and have been uh, enlightened, right, and realized what is the problem and already fighting back that globalist agenda.
Yes, we need to fight the globalist agenda. You're absolutely right. And actually, it's if you look at everything that they're doing to us, starting with COVID-19, I was the only national leader speaking for freedom of choice and with an informed consent. That did not happen during COVID-19. I was there doing rallies, and at that time, it was not popular to speak about freedom in March 2020, but I did it. And I did it because it's part of our conviction. As you know, this party has been created based on four principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with that. So when that happened during COVID-19, it was natural for me to be out there and speak for Canadians. And actually, now, after all that, after 4 years, we know that we were right at that time, and we know now that that vaccine is not safe and effective, and that was, Canadians who were not in danger of dying. The majority of the population were not in a danger of dying. Only was, older people with comorbidity at that time. So that being said, in politics, what is the most important is the credibility of the politician. So I believe that, saying always the same things, and with passion and conviction, you gain credibility. And our time will come when people will say, okay, I like these ideas, I like that guy, I will support him. The big challenge that we have: 40% of our population didn't vote at the last election because they don't believe in these establishment politicians. They know that they're saying something a day and the opposite the other day. So I'm telling them, we are different. We are doing politics differently. Go on our website, Google me, Google the People's Party. We are always saying the same thing since the creation of the People's Party in 2018. So if you want a real change and a bold reforms, the People's Party is there. So if we can have only half of these people who didn't vote at the last election, will be at about 20%. So it's a nice challenge, but also the fact that we don't have a lot of visibility in the mainstream media. Also, a lot of Canadians don't know that we exist. That's another challenge. Maybe 50% of the population don't know that there's another populist political party out there in Canada called the People's Party of Canada. So, so we can
True.
grow. We just have to reach to these people.
It is true, and it might be true that a lot of these people that didn't vote were mostly disillusioned people from the political system, feel like they really don't have power to change with their votes, or there is not the option to really, like I said, it's left and right, but they all offer
Notice.
you the same thing. We'll talk about the same problems. I think it's an interesting thing because polyamory has such attraction now with the X the tax. And I keep asking every time I see the commercial, who is going to be benefited by this? If it's going to be the house building big companies, right? Which probably friends of politicians, right? Uh, to get this benefit of reduce the tax on the construction, is that reduction on the building costs gonna be uh, transferred to the people, right? Because here in around Vancouver, the main problem is as expensive as living in Paris,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sorry, we're not in Europe, right? We don't have access to any Eiffel Tower or go to visit the Louvre. Right? In the end, you start thinking if it is really a way of living in, like you said, the house dream is not something realistic for Canadians. Nobody
Yes,
here is thinking of buying their house because it's so ridiculous expensive. You like, if I have that much money, I'll buy three houses in another place.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you're right about that. Poliev is saying every Canadians must live in a high rises, but that's not the Canadian dream. You want a house with a green backyard when you can play outside with your kids, and with mass immigration, that's not happening. So let's stop that. Let's have a moratorium. Prices would go down. Let's lower taxes. Canadians will have more of their own money in their own pockets. They'll be able to do what they want with their money. That's why we want a smaller government in Ottawa that will respect payers, that won't interfere in provincial jurisdictions, will respect the Constitution. We won't give money to subsidies to big corporations or any corporation. We will cut the corporate welfare and bring that money. We can save $10 billion. We will lower the taxes with that. So yes, your standard of living, will go up with us, and we'll fight inflation. We'll fight inflation by telling the Bank of Canada you need to have a 0% inflation target. 20% inflation is bad. 2% inflation is bad. We need to have 0% inflation. That's the only way for Canadians to preserve and keep their purchasing power.
Yeah, we need to fight with that for sure, because everybody seems to ignore or not go all the way to the end of the conversation with the immigration, mass immigration, and plus illegal immigration. They try to talk about, oh, you against immigration, right? As you would say, like, maybe you don't take those new vaccines that have not been tested. They like, oh, you're just anti-vax, right? So those labels are damaging, and to go on in conversations across the political spectrum, right? But the illegal immigrants, and I have seen you talking about this, and the low wages, right? If you have people here and have jobs here that don't want to match, naturally, it's because we need to raise the wages. But bringing immigrants and mainly letting a lot of illegal immigrants, and sometimes legal immigrants, but working under the table, right? Then they become illegal in that way, will definitely damage that possibility of raising the wages. And we experience this every other day. We see people offering to do some service that you would contract a company, and through this company it's too expensive because the government have put too many regulations. So in the end, it's just people that get hurt on the line, right, one after the other. uh, what uh, uh, what do you think you would be able to offer as having a much more knowledge in financial and business, right? Just like Trump, you would probably manage the government, the country better. So how would you sell your
Yeah.
financial skills here for the
Yeah, I
people?
know. Yeah, you're right about that. I did work in the private sector before being in politics. I was elected the first time in 2006 under the Conservative for 13 years. And as you know, I resigned from the Conservative Party to create the People's Party. But before all that, before 2006, I did work in the private sector. I was VP of a bank, VP an insurance corporation. So I was working in finance, and I use that experience in politics and outside politics to build the best platform. And the platform that we have, it's yes, we're gonna cut not only a flat tax on business and cut expenses like all the money that the federal government is giving to the media, the mainstream media. We can save $2 billion by cutting that. I want the media to be independent, not to be dependent on the government. I want them to be independent, and if they're not able to survive, they'll go bankrupt. That's a free market. So no more subsidies to the media. All the media, print and TV, and all the media, they will have to be independent. And now after that, we can cut corporate welfare. We'll save $10 billion there. We can cut foreign aid, bring that money home. We're going to save another $10 billion there. It's easy to balance the budget, but also we need to cut the capital gains tax to be sure that people would keep more of their money in their pockets. We want to also, there's 5 tax brackets in Canada. We want to reduce that to only 3. So what I'm telling you is you can balance the budget in 1 year, and after that, lower taxes for everybody. Everybody will have more money, and they know better what to do with their money than a bureaucrat in Ottawa or a politician in Ottawa. So that's why I believe in people. I don't believe in a big fat government that will tell you what to do or what not to do.
I love that. It's really important. Nowadays, we only have all those sides which is sent to placate as so well intentioned, so empathizing that they just want to make people's best choice for them, right? That's why they need to take all their money. But I do believe as a libertarian, and I know you align yourself quite a lot with the principles of libertarianism, with a smaller government, more localized, where people can make more of their own choices and live the way they want, as well to have a smaller government and let people's money in their pocket so they can make the choice where they're going to give to charity or where they're going to spend, where they're going to invest, right? Give them the chance of losing their money, right? But here we are in such a good government, right? Want to take care of people's lives so badly that we are subsidizing so much stuff that would not survive by themselves, and that's everybody has to pay more. The money has diminished the value just like in the United States, and they think, "Wow, I have the printing machine and I can just print more." It doesn't seem that these people have any economics like basic knowledge, right? I know you align yourself a lot with the Austrian economics, so
Yeah.
everybody can just check that out. It's an extensive subject and really
Yeah.
a smart way to go. Besides us never being having a libertarian or a more economic, prosperous political uh, party anywhere, like or in power. But I think we could be the first ones, right? Hopefully. Do you think Trudeau will try to push Freeland as the first female prime minister if his popular doesn't get up until the elections? How is that gonna go? Is she
Yeah.
gonna be the? He was Biden, and she will be Kamala to the election. How is that gonna?
I don't know what will happen, but that being said, Trudeau, Freeland, or Carney, that would be the same. And we Trudeau wanted to do that fight, wanted to be the candidate for the Liberal for the next election, but he was pushed out by the members of Parliament, the establishment of the party, because for them the most important is to win the next election and stay in power. And Trudeau was not the best one to do that. And I believe that Carney or Freeland won't be able to win the next election. So it's all the same. And you add Polyev like that, Polyev, will be a good manager of a big fat government. That will be the same, and more people will realize that. So let's fight for what we believe, and the common sense will prevail. Our time will come, like our time came after COVID. It took us 2 years, but yeah, we were right. And same thing for us as a political party. Our time will come, and we'll see what will happen at the next election. But you can count on me. You can count on the People's Party to do what is right and fight for what is right.
Thank you so much, Maxime. I would like to finish. Actually, let's do one more question before we finish here because I heard you talk about how you like many of the Trump's moves, new moves, and mainly the 10. You put a list of 10 signs. And gender affirming care. I don't know how extensive you know the damage is here in Canada in politics, academics, and therefore in the primary levels, right, of our schools, right?
Yeah.
Kids 3, 4 years old, trans, right? So your
No.
position.
Yeah, that's crazy. We are doing that. Gender affirming care, that's if you translate that, it's mutilation of kids. I'm against that. The conservative and Polyev personally voted for that bill. Bill C4 allowed, the mutilation of young kids. And Trump said that's the end of that, and that must be the same here in Canada. It must be criminal to do that for kids under 18 years old. They're taking hormones blockers, and that when you take that, it's irreversible. Some have surgeries, and so mutilation. You cannot do that. A kid cannot drink beer, cannot go to a bar, cannot drive a car, but will be able to decide that they can mutilate their body. No, a young boy or a young girl is never born in a wrong body. We need to help them to accept their body. But now that's the opposite with the conservative, the liberal, the NDP, and all these establishment politicians. They think that transitioning exists. There's no such thing as transition. A young boy cannot be a young girl, and a young girl cannot be a young boy. There's no transition, and they voted for that. It's criminal. It must be criminal, and under us it will. And I will ask your viewers to go on our website and read our policy on that. Everything is there. We will be tough on doctors and nurses who are doing that to our kids.
That's right. Yeah, there is a good push against the SOGI program more in central Canada than here west in Vancouver. Uh, I don't know how it is in the East Coast, to be honest. Uh, Politically, there we kind of afar, right? We don't hear much unless people send us the stuff. But there is there are secluded areas, right? Which is interesting is that the people that are being transitioned as kids, right? The trans kids, right? We don't believe there are trans kids. There might have trans adults that could get the help whenever they are already adults, right? Like I said, not a minor. Uh, but if you look at the population here and on the internet, right, where they display their examples, they are vulnerable people. They usually are people with some mental disabilities, psychiatrics, or just psychological uh, disabilities. So I think they are more vulnerable than just being kids, right? So it would be very a situation of a deep abuse, which I'm impressed that doctors foster. I think it is an inversion of values coming from academics and politics together, right? The entrism of woke in
Yeah.
academics and politics. I've seen displaying here in UBC medical continuing education webinars for medical doctors. I have visit, right, and register with the best intention to actually see if at least the medical community was being scientific on their approach, right? If they were testing, if they are really just transitioning trans healthy people, but it's pretty much brainwash, up down dictatorship of if you don't do this, if you question anything, you're a bad doctor. Get out of here. We're going to properly expose you. So it's a hard one to go through, right? As a doctor trying to get my license here, and like you said, I think me and other people out there, normal people on the streets that have seen the cultural change in the last years, right? I moved to Richmond, which was heavily Chinese or Asian, Asiatic, Oriental people, and now of all sorts, and now we have seen a heavy Islamization of the area, which is quite disturbing for me, who came expecting for a more secular place. Even there's a lot of church. I've moved to interior side where there's a church in every corner, but there's nobody evangelizing, and it pretty much have the same background, moral values, let's say, right? It's quite an interesting thing to hear kids running on the parks and yelling Allahu Akbar, right?
Yeah.
It's a but thank you so much, Maxime. I think I extend a little bit. I'm sorry for the time, but it's so much, right? It's thick. It's maybe something that perhaps our politicians, right, our mainstream media politicians don't experience because they don't live normal lives like us on the streets, right? Is that such a thing? What is your experience to go there, touch them, right? Have this interface, this moment of talking to these people and coming out here on the real world.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing also. As the leader of the party, I need to be out there and to speak with people, on the street, the real people. Actually, this weekend I will be in Edmonton. We have a couple of rallies that would be fun, but also I'm very active, as you know, on social media to be able to speak to more people. So that's why, I was very pleased to be with you tonight. Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity to be with you and speak to your viewers.
Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, I'll finish here. Guys, go check People's Party of Canada. Maxime uh, is very clear on his policies. You guys go and check. You can message Ryan, or his secretaries are great. So you guys need extra information about. I'm pretty sure they can link you guys all. And I'll leave the links here under the description. Thank you so much. Let's finish the recording right now. See you guys.